what are we going to talk about today? Yes. I can't seem to get rid of my son, can I? That voice is lodged into my head. So today I thought we'd talk about this, that changes are necessary. Ooh, did you hear someone grunt? Changes are necessary. In fact, changes are not just necessary, changes are a fact. Do you get that? Changes are a fact. The very fact that you're here right this moment, and now in this moment, your body is totally different. Do you get that? In that moment, hundreds of thousands of cells, if not millions of cells, have already died and have been replaced by other cells. So change is something that's happening whether we want to admit it or not. Everything in the universe is in motion. Everything is moving, grooving, going around and doing things, and nothing is to remain the same. This idea that our lives can remain the same is the illusion that makes us miserable. If I went back and said, I want to be the boy that was in 1969, and I started to live as if I was that, I'd be miserable. I was so insecure. So insecure. And I had pimples. They'd pop up all over the place. And I don't know if you remember, but when you were kids and you got a pimple, that was like a disaster. It was a disaster. Did you ever go on a date, and the day of the date, a big one just peered right on the end of your nose? And there was nothing you could do to hide it. So you would think, well, she never looked into my eyes. She was really just looking at my nose. That happened to me. That's why I remember that. It was all about insecurity. Why was it about insecurity? Because I didn't love myself. I thought I had to be more than I was in order to be accepted by others. And so as I start to prepare for next August 2nd is my 50th high school reunion. And so the preparation for all that's happening, and I shared with some people earlier today that one of the people in the group that's putting on the event posted a list of 60-some people who have already died. 60-some people out of my class already died. It was like 700 people. So that's like 10% are dead. And then I looked and I went through my yearbook and I would put a D under the name of the person who died. D for dead or D for deceased. And I looked at the pictures. I only remembered 20 of the 60-some. But when I looked at the 20, I said, I wonder if they lived their dream. I wonder if they remained as joyful. Do you remember when you got your yearbook and you put to your friends and they wrote all these great things in your yearbook and they say, yeah, I see this great thing for you, or oh, you're just going to be a scum or whatever it is. Did you live it? Did you really live your dream? I don't know if they did. I'm curious to go back because I went to the 25th reunion and I found people were very, very different than I remembered them. Very, very few people did I connect with because I was different. So 50 years, I'm really different. I'm not that person I was then. And I realized that everything I've gone through in life is a change that I've made, and everything that I've gone through made me Lee today. And so what we have to do is we have to bless the Lee or bless the you that you are today, and that the change that you're having, in order for you to become this greater person, this greater expression of yourself, you've got to have change. You can't stay the same and become greater. Does that make sense? You've got to be challenged at a greater level to become greater, because you become greater when you handle greater challenges. So we're going to start off with this. Your mind enables you to experience. It can either serve you or it can imprison you. Which one depends entirely on you. You see, we're not a mind. We're not our mind. We have a mind. We also have a body, but we're not our body. There's something greater than our mind and our body that we are. We call it the soul. We call it that which is an individualization of the infinite. If you want to use the Christian term, you can call it a child of God. But that's out here. We don't even know that. Most of the time, we're not even aware that there's a power and a presence that's greater than we think we are, that we're working, that our mind is a product of. Now, this mind, if we use it to create a greater life, it's serving us. If we use it to stay still and to be in grief all the time and to be a victim all the time, we're imprisoning ourselves. We are imprisoning ourselves by our thoughts. We look at the past and we say, this past defined me. That bad relationship, I'm destined to have other bad relationships. You've imprisoned yourself by how you're using your mind. But what you could say is, all of those past relationships have made me more aware, and I become more aware of the man that I desire to be in my dream relationship. And when I become that man and I step into that, I must attract that in my life. Because you attract who you are. Do you get that? You attract who you are. Don't try to fight that. A lot of you are saying to yourself, no, that crazy person, I didn't attract them. Yeah, you did. The most important thing about attracting a crazy person, and crazy is just a label for someone who's different, is that you attracted them, but did you choose how you responded to them? See, crazy people are everywhere. Just walk outside. In fact, in this room, there's a lot of crazy people. But how are you responding when you're with them? You have total control over your response. No one is responsible for how you respond to something other than you. You have the power there. This is a new woman that I'm reading right now, Jack O'Keefe. She says, all thoughts are imaginings until we give them the weight and the power to become true for us. It goes back to quantum physics when they give you the illustration in quantum physics and what the bleep do we know. In the movie What the Bleep Do We Know, there was a scene where he was on the basketball court and he said that every possibility exists everywhere at the same time, and they were showing basketballs everywhere. And the only basketball that was really real for you was what? The one you focused on. So there's infinite possibilities available to us all the time. Which one are you looking at? Are you looking at the one of lack, or are you looking at the one of abundance? Because that's an energy, that's a thought process, that's a mental feeling. And when we're looking at it from a point of lack, guess what the universe says? More lack. If you're looking at it from an abundance standpoint, more abundance. Because at any given moment, there's more than enough to be grateful for in our lives. More than enough to be grateful for. If you just, by the fact that you're breathing, the fact that your cells are replacing themselves, that you have life in you and you have your five senses and you're here to experience life. Remember that. That's why we're here. We're here to experience life to the fullest. We're not here to be in meditation all the time. Meditation for me is like a spiritual reboot. Takes me out of the craziness of my mind. I meditate. I bring myself back to reboot, where I've got my perfect operating system going. My connection to God, to source, to divine energy is there. Now I recreate my life from that point. So when things are going really amok in your lives, I think it was this last week, I had a funk going on Monday. I had a real funk in my life, and I didn't know what to do. And I felt like I wanted to rip someone's face off. And no one had done anything. Did you get that? No one had done anything. It was just I was feeling overwhelmed with everything going on in my life. And I said, you know how you get that agitation going through you? I know you have. I had to say, well, okay, what do I teach? Well, I better meditate. So I sat down and I meditated for a half hour. And then I said, okay, here's what I see in my dream. Here's everything on my list. Which things on my list are part of my dream? And then I started doing one after another after another. Funk disappeared. Because I paused, I did a reboot, and then I picked what was important to me, and I took a simple action toward the direction of what I wanted. You see, you change by how you move. Do you get that? Tony Robbins talks about that all the time. You want to change your state? Change your posture. Change the way you hold yourself, the way you walk, the way you carry yourself, the way you breathe. The movement, the action can have a big impact on you. Ernest goes on, he says, the two fundamental propositions which we must remember are that we are creative centers in mind and that our thought is creative through the action of a power greater than we are. First off, we are not creators. We are not God creating. but the power of our word is taken into the power that is the infinite, and it creates what we put into it. Does that make sense? There's one creative power, and we are using it. And it's in the realization that that creative power is responding to us, whether we're conscious of it or we're unconscious of it, it's working. So whatever you're putting into your mind is forming a mental atmosphere, a mental thought process, and that gets created in our lives. It's that simple. I mean, and remember, the power that you're using is greater. It doesn't know any limitation. The only limitation this power that it creates has is the ones we put on it. Ernest goes on and says, everything in our personal experience depends upon our mental and emotional reactions to life and our deep realization of the intimate relationship we have with the divine or the infinite. An intimate relationship. Don't you love when it's, you have an intimate relationship with the creative power that creates everything? The intimacy of that relationship, it responds to you. It doesn't judge you. It doesn't say, this is what I think you should have. This is what I think you should have. It simply gives you who you are. So it's very impersonal. It's very impersonal. And yet, it's very personal. It doesn't care what you give it, but whatever you give it, it gives you. That's the law of cause and effect. That's the law of reciprocity. That's the law of giving and receiving. That's the law of, you name the law of attraction. You name the law. It's all one law. And this one law is being used by everybody. So if you have a Christian that believes in this form of prayer over here, and they believe it, that prayer will get answered. If you have a Muslim believing in a form of prayer over here, and they believe it, that prayer gets answered. If you have a religious scientist, which is what we tend to practice what we practice, and you believe it, it happens to you. If you are an atheist and you believe something, it will demonstrate, because that power responds no matter who you are. It just responds to your belief. Your belief is everything. He goes, through the process of thinking, we are either repelling or attracting the life we want to live. We can do this consciously or unconsciously. It's our choice. Most people are living their lives unconsciously. They have habits. Habits. Walk into the shower, first thing you do with Lee Wolak. I take the body wash that's mango honey from the Grand Wailea on Maui. I put two douses in my hand, and it goes right into my left pit. That's my habit. I thought about that, and I said, well, what should I do? Well, that's very comfortable. Is there any reason to change it? Well, no. See, all habits are not bad. That's what we have to discern. Habits are good if they're supporting us. That's the key thing. I have a habit of how I work out. It's supporting me. Habit of how I eat. That's supporting me. But I look at areas of my life where I'm not liking what I'm seeing. It's not in alignment. Then I've got to question, what is the habit I'm having in that area of life? And then I work on shifting my thought process and building a new mental habit about that. If we are to have a better life, there has to be a consistency and definiteness and continuous thinking along a certain line in a specific direction, not once a day, but all day. I say this every day, every time I talk with you. We must be persistent and consistent with our thoughts, words, feelings, and actions directed toward a specific result. That's what builds a belief. Ernest Holmes says it differently than I say it. Same thing. You'll say it differently than I say it. Doesn't matter what you perceive. It's aligning your thoughts, words, actions, and feelings toward a directed result held persistently and consistently. That means anything that's a disruption to you holding it persistently and consistently, you must eliminate. Because if you don't, that will have influence on what you are able or not able to create and experience. So if your mama's whispering in your ear, you can't do it, you can't do it, you can't do it, you better get mama out of your ear. Because mama's not serving you. Mama does a lot of times, mama wants to keep us what? Safe. We weren't meant to be safe. We were meant to be voyagers. We were meant to be adventurers. We were meant to be taking risks out in the world. Safety is good when you're a baby, but when you're our age, there's no reason to be safe. Take the risks that are in alignment with your dream. what's the worst that can happen to you? You die. If you die, what do? You just continue on into the next realm. We've made this death thing so fearful that it paralyzes us. When all we're doing is we're just living, we're eternal beings. We're going to forever and ever be unfolding. So give up the fear of death and you'll be able to live more today. It's not done by holding thoughts, by concentration, or by willing, but by a gentle and more powerful influence of persistent and consistent affirmation, which gradually changes into the new, the old. I talk about affirmations all the time. If you've been coming to Agape, you'll know that affirmations is one of the things that I fully believe is a key to changing our beliefs. An affirmation is, I'm complete, whole, and perfect, just as I am. Anything that says I am is an affirmation. When you do an affirmation, it's I am this, and it's now. It's never in the future. If you put it into the future, you're saying to the world, to the power, that it's going to happen in the future. Well, you don't want it in the future. You want it now, so you've got to become it now. So if you're feeding your mind that my body lives and breathes perfect rhythm and life every moment of every day, and you keep feeding that thought over and over and over in, it starts forming a subconscious thought pattern within your mind, and your mind takes that pattern because it's now becoming a belief, and over time as the belief deepens, your body becomes that. But let's go on with Ernest Holmes. Ernest Holmes says this, Agape is the only place to be. Why? Why is Agape the only place to be? Because you're here. Isn't that simple? You're here right now. The question you got to ask yourself is, what do I feel in this moment? Do I feel safe? Do I feel supported? Do I feel challenged? Do I feel inspired? Do I feel connected? Do I feel like I'm with people of like mind? Do I feel when I leave here, do I leave feeling good? Remember, your emotions are your guide. If you feel good, you're on the path. If you feel bad, you're off your path. It's not that you're doing wrong, you're just off your path. When you meet someone and you're about to do a business deal, tap into your feelings first. Does it feel right to be doing a business deal with this individual? The Agape board had that opportunity to do that the other day. And we tapped into our feelings. What did we feel about this? And it was in those feelings that other ideas came out and a decision could be made. You see, life is about relationships. Life is about connection. Life is about feeling in connection. There are people in your life that you know you feel good with. Be with them more. There are people in your life that you don't feel good with. Be with them less. Why? Because it's self-loving. It's self-promoting. That's hard to do with family. That's the hardest thing. I had a brother who's now passed, younger than myself, and there was not a connection at all, other than we were born from the same mother and the same father. His view of life was a very dark, negative, angry view of life. Here's what I had to realize. I couldn't change him. You can't change anybody. You've got to give up that idea. You cannot change anyone. The question I had to ask every time I talked with him, I felt miserable. And so I just eliminated contact with him except once a year. Once a year. That's all we had. And then when he died, I went there the week before. I took care of his affairs, got him into hospice and all of that. We made our peace, and he passed. But that's all he was supposed to be in my life. He wasn't supposed to be in my life every day, every week. We're not supposed to be. We get to choose who we're with. Do you get that? We get to choose who we're with. The choice you got to ask, is that choice supporting more life? Is that choice supporting me being more loving? Is that choice supporting me supporting that person and them supporting me? If you answer yes to that, that's a relationship to keep. If it's not that, you go, Sorry, wrong number. The question I want to ask you today is, are you dreaming? Are you dreaming about who you want to be? Because until you start to dream, nothing new can happen. The dream starts the creative process, and we have forgotten how to dream. And see, what dreaming involves change. And we've gotten so to the point where we want to be comfortably numb in the moment that we are now, and we want to avoid change, and when we avoid change, we kill any possibility of dreaming a greater life. So what I'm asking you to do today is to embrace change and begin to dream. You are the power, and you get to create your life. Let's pray.